What if I told you BlackRock might have a secret plan involving XRP? Sounds wild, right? You're probably thinking this has to be clickbait, or BlackRock doesn't care about XRP, or maybe even haven't we heard this rumor before? But stick with me. I want to dive into this topic. First off, when we talk about BlackRock and XRP, what's the big idea? It's all about the ETF. As you can see on my screen, someone in the XRP community on X, formerly Twitter, recently shared an intriguing post about rumors linking BlackRock and XRP. Here's what Mason Black Crypto had to say. Rumor alert, BlackRock XRP ETF filing imminent. Speculation is now swirling that BlackRock could be gearing up to file for an XRP ETF. Could this be the start of something huge? Let's discuss. If true, this could be a game changer for institutional adoption. And yes, it absolutely could be. But here's the catch. Rumors about BlackRock and XRP have been swirling for ages. Let's take a closer look. As of now, there's no official confirmation from BlackRock regarding an XRP ETF filing. Past rumors, like the fake filing in November 2023, have already been debunked. It's radio silence from BlackRock, no announcements, no statements, no nods toward an XRP ETF. The XRP community is buzzing with hope, but until we get something official, it's wise to stay skeptical. That said, it's hard to ignore BlackRock's strategic moves in crypto. Are they planning something with XRP? Maybe, but for now, it's all just speculation. Keep watching, things could get interesting. Here's why I say this. It's pretty obvious. XRP has been a massive success story, especially since 2022. I'm talking about its performance in cycles. But that's just scratching the surface. From the start, XRP has been a dominant force in crypto. It's held its place in the top 10 for what feels like forever, driving innovation in DeFi, tokenization, and payment solutions. Ripple, the company behind XRP, has spent over a decade expanding its influence. Today, XRP has global payment rails firmly in place, with Ripple already commanding 90% of the FX market, a staggering achievement. So, it's no surprise that BlackRock sees XRP as a clear opportunity. But here's the real question. Why hasn't BlackRock filed for an XRP ETF yet? That's the elephant in the room. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, just made bold moves in crypto, transferring over $560 million of Bitcoin to Coinbase and snapping up $95 million in Ethereum for its ETFs. According to Austin King, Bitcoin ETFs are just the beginning. They open the floodgates for a whole new class of investors. But what's next? Ethereum and XRP are already in the spotlight. Defiance captured it perfectly. Now that Bitcoin is seen as digital gold, investors are asking, what else can crypto do? Ethereum smart contracts are the obvious next step, and BlackRock is positioning itself to lead the charge. As King explains, cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and XRP go beyond hype. They provide real utility. This is where institutional giants believe the next big wave of capital will flow. The crypto story is evolving, and the stakes just got a lot higher. Ripple and XRP are making waves as institutional adoption skyrockets. Big players are zeroing in on XRP, and for good reason. Over the past year, XRP has left Bitcoin and Ethereum in the dust, outperforming them both in spectacular fashion. Since 2022, XRP has seen an incredible surge of over 1,000%, shooting up from its lows and solidifying its place as a powerhouse in the crypto space. This cycle, XRP isn't just holding its own, it's dominating. It's outshining Bitcoin and Ethereum, grabbing the spotlight as institutions and companies take notice. Many are now considering XRP for strategic reserves, signaling its growing importance. Add to that the expanding adoption of XRP, and it's clear this is XRP's moment to shine. Institutions know it, and it's time the world does too. This year's been a whirlwind, fueled by the election buzz and the opening of the US market. And let's not forget ROUSD, Ripple's stablecoin, which is making waves like never before. With so much momentum, are we really supposed to believe that BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, is just sitting this one out? Hard to imagine, right? If I were BlackRock, I'd be asking, what's the next big ETF play? Bitcoin ETFs were a hit. Ethereum ETFs, not so much. So what's next? Maybe Solana? Interesting thought. But let's dig deeper. How has XRP stacked up against Solana? Turns out Solana hasn't exactly been a shining star over the past year. XRP has been stealing the spotlight this year, leaving others in the dust. Think about it. Ethereum already has its ETF, but it hasn't exactly been a game changer. Solana? Maybe, but it's a gamble. So what's crushing them all? XRP. It's outperformed Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Dogecoin, and BNB. If I'm BlackRock, I'm looking at the scoreboard. Bitcoin, a huge win. Ethereum, not so much. XRP, this could be the next big success story. Why XRP? Institutional adoption and market exposure. XRP has been outshining even our top performing digital asset ETF. It's clear XRP is the bet to make. But here's where it gets interesting. BlackRock is starting to drop hints. According to Subjective Views, BlackRock's head of US equity ETFs mentioned that more investors are seeking global monetary alternatives. If BlackRock knows people want options beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they already have ETFs for those, doesn't an XRP ETF feel like the logical next step? The demand for alternatives is growing. Take a closer look.
There is a comfort and intelligence factor, also perhaps an allocative factor to this whole Bitcoin trade now that it's in an ETF format. Is it a situation in your mind where you are seeing evidence, Jay, that there are advisors or retail investors who are now in that kind of allocation comfort phase where they can say, hey, X% of my portfolio is going to go towards cryptocurrencies and specifically for something like Bitcoin?
Absolutely. I think the world's changing every day when it comes to that. I thought about this in 3 stages. First, you bring the product out. It's about access. The second is you educate people about what it's providing access to. Bitcoin, what is it? How could it work in a portfolio? But the third stage is about implementation. People really taking that leap to allocate to it in a portfolio. Everyone's on different stages of the journey. We've certainly opened access with the launch of iBit last year. Many people are learning about it from an educational perspective, but implementation is where we're starting to see some really good tailwinds. BlackRock's own models have allocated to iBit in some of the alternative models as a diversifier in a portfolio that behaves very differently from traditional assets. We've seen other institutional clients start to make allocations in their portfolios. We've seen some advisors making allocations. So this Step 2 and Step 3 around education and implementation, we're still very deep in those stages and continuing to see more progress, especially as the Bitcoin story resonates in this environment, where people are really looking for global monetary alternatives amidst more uncertainty.
So, Jay, speaking of those global monetary alternatives, is there, in your mind, maybe a hypothetical or even an estimated timeline for when these types of investors, retail or otherwise, institutions or otherwise, and or just investment advisors overall, start to get more comfortable with things that are not Bitcoin, but smaller ones? I'm thinking about Ethereum. Ether is one of them, maybe Solana, some of the other ones that people know but aren't as big as Bitcoin. Do you feel as though that comfort ramp is going to be there for some of those smaller currencies and coins as well in the crypto screen?
It's difficult to say, difficult to speculate on that. Bitcoin, Dane said it, we're 17 months in, and I think various different people are in various different stages of that journey of understanding or implementing this asset. I think what's changed in the last month that's notable are the flows into our Ethereum ETF, ETHA, which has seen about $1 billion year to date, with the majority of that coming just in the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. It's an evolving landscape. We're seeing there's certainly been some strong performance of late with Ethereum after difficult beginning of the year. We've seen some progress, particularly on the policy side, that could be more accommodative of things like stablecoins and other digital assets. And we've seen a big upgrade to Ethereum, which has brought kind of a new narrative into the space as well. So from our lens and the clients that we're speaking to, Bitcoin is still the vast majority of the conversations and the interest amongst professional investors, but we're starting to see Ethereum really pick up as well.
The spotlight remains on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but conversations around XRP are heating up. In fact, I'm convinced XRP is already on BlackRock's radar, and here's why. Flashback to 2024, BlackRock was directly asked about launching an XRP ETF. Larry Fink's response, coy, I can't answer that. Sound familiar? If not, you'll want to revisit this clip. Big moves could be brewing. Don't sleep on it.
Will you do another ETF? How about an XRP ETF? I know you got Ether out there. How about XRP? Can you answer that?
I can't. And you don't want me to.
I do.
Well, I can't.
All right, so he can't answer that. But the real question is, why? Why can't BlackRock answer this? And more importantly, why hasn't BlackRock filed for an XRP ETF yet? It feels like the obvious move, especially with the flood of ETF filings happening right now. So what's the holdup? Well, there could be a few reasons. Smoke Dog broke it down over on X, sharing why BlackRock might be hitting pause on an XRP ETF filing. Despite XRP being one of the most in-demand altcoins for an ETF, BlackRock isn't making the leap just yet. Here's why. First, there's the elephant in the room, regulatory uncertainty. The SEC still hasn't clearly defined whether XRP and many other crypto assets are securities or commodities. Yes, courts ruled that XRP isn't a security, but the SEC seems determined to drag its feet. ETF approval timelines keep getting pushed further. Now we're looking at June or October of this year. BlackRock is likely waiting for the dust to settle and for full regulatory clarity before jumping in. Institutional grade derivatives are making waves. Big players rely on futures to hedge and manage risk. And Bitcoin and Ethereum currently dominate the CME futures space with massive trading volumes. But here's the big news. XRP joined the party on May 19th, debuting its CME futures with an impressive $19 million in day one volume. While it's a significant milestone, the XRP futures market is still finding its footing. Institutions often wait for consistent activity and deeper liquidity before diving in. What's holding it back? Liquidity. XRP boasts strong market depth and ranks as one of the top legacy coins in this area. However, ETFs demand high, stable liquidity to manage large inflows and outflows, a key factor closely monitored by the SEC. BlackRock has its sights set on XRP, but it's all about timing. For now, they're riding the wave with Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, which are pulling in huge inflows. The strategy? Focus on what's booming while waiting for the perfect moment to strike. XRP and Solana are stealing the spotlight in ETF chatter, but BlackRock seems to be taking a wait-and-see approach. They're watching how the SEC handles these filings, holding back until demand strengthens, regulations clear up, and the market matures. It's a patient, calculated game. There's a twist. BlackRock likely already has an XRP ETF in the pipeline. They're just sharpening their strategy, waiting for the stars to align. It feels less like speculation and more like destiny. It's not if, but when. From a market perspective, Bitcoin ETFs have made their mark, and now Ethereum ETFs are finally gaining momentum after arriving late to the game. But here's the twist. XRP has stolen the show. It hasn't just outperformed Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's crushed them. Let's break it down. Well, XRP skyrocketed by an incredible 527% over the past year. Ethereum actually dropped nearly 9%. Even Bitcoin, the crypto giant, only managed a 47.5% gain in the same period. Now, imagine the potential here. If I'm looking to cash in on retail interests, especially with ETFs, where companies like BlackRock rake in profits from fees, it's easy to see why XRP is generating so much buzz. The demand, the hype, the traction, it's all building. There's serious potential to cash in on the hype and demand surrounding this. Imagine an XRP ETF. Headlines blazing, every major news outlet covering it, and success practically guaranteed. It would dominate the conversation everywhere. The profit potential is massive. So why the delay? Is it tied to the legal case? Or are they simply prioritizing Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs for now? It feels like we're stuck in a waiting game, as even Bloomberg has hinted. But could there be more happening behind the curtain? That's what gets me thinking, especially after this interview. Why would Larry Fink dodge the question like that? You know I can't answer that, he said. But why not? What's really going on? That's such a strange response. And remember when Brad Garlinghouse said he couldn't talk about it? That was way back in 2024. Fast forward to today, and now Brad has plenty to say on the matter. It's fascinating, especially with all the buzz around an XRP ETF. The timing couldn't be more intriguing. The list of filings is massive, over 18 and counting. What's even more surprising is the SEC finally starting to acknowledge them. It seems like it's only a matter of time before we see BlackRock file for an XRP ETF, but the real question is when? Could it happen next month, in 3 months, 6 months? Honestly, we don't know yet. What's clear, though, is that BlackRock appears to have big plans for XRP. From a market perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And let's face it, they're likely eyeing the retail side too, because where there's opportunity, there's profit. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more free content. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, peace out.